balloons and everything to hang them. I have the fanciest little table on the river since I had to go for it. I have the other boat that runs, of course. He's got the regular one that goes on the single boats. But I don't like those big old square tables.
Too hard to handle?
What I have is little. You have to set it up. Have to put pieces together, but it sure is a handy little thing, I have to admit, once you get it up.
Yeah.
But I had to change some of my boatmen are the ones that was a laugh because they didn't like it at all. They had much preferred to have it more primitive.
Yeah.
So I never did hear of anybody complain about bending down to the sand, but the park rangers said people didn't want to, so.
What are you going to do with that?
So I had to change.
I bet you've seen a lot of changes.
Well, I had to change because I was told so.
Here's a glass of water.
Oh, thank you.
If you ever
Not that I wanted to, but I was told to.
Boy, it sure changed a lot up above. I guess it's changed more outside of that ditch than it has down in it in the last 8 years.
I always kid the ranger now and said, gee, how'd I do all them 25 years without you? Because they weren't allowed on the river till the dam come in. And first ranger went with me. I had to get a special permission out of Washington. And I was trying to do it so they wouldn't sit up and talk about Powell talking about people drowning with silt in their clothes, because I said that was not true and I'm trying to get passengers. So I got the first one and had to have a special permit out of Washington, who was Dan Davis.
Washington didn't want to let them come down?
Oh, no rangers were allowed on the river before the dam. And they don't like to hear this even said now, because they'd give anything if they could say they were the great adventure or something. But they weren't even allowed on the river. Then when I put in for it, I said flatly, don't give me a desk clerk now, give me someone that, that's a little ruggeder. Yeah, I put in flatly, don't you give me a desk clerk. But I got the right fella, he was great. No complaints at all, he was just wonderful. And then he had heart problem, or some kind of problems, I think, early. And then they sent him back to Omaha, and he set up parks. And then I had a good picture of him, and this book was coming out, and I had his permission, but I wanted to be sure it was still okay. And I called back, and somehow they transferred me, and I didn't know it, to the hospital. Then I talked to him, and lo and behold, I'm talking to him at the hospital, and he's in for a heart operation the next day. And so I said, well, boy, I didn't have any idea I was getting transferred to a hospital. And because I had wanted to ask this, and he said, oh, heavens, yes, go ahead. And then he was going in the next day. So then he said, well, when he was okay, he would call me, which he did. And so then he could take an early retirement, or he could have some kind of a job there for some time before he'd get more pension. And his kids were growing and everything, and he said, I don't know what to do. And I said, are you kidding? Because he always loved Arizona. And I said, you were always crazy about Arizona. And you mean to tell me you don't know what to do when you don't know, let's put it flatly, how long you're going to live? Why, boy, what are you hesitating about? Take that lesser money and get back to Arizona, for heaven's sakes. And you can pick up part-time something. So he said, really? And I said, well, I wouldn't even think about not quitting. If it was me, you don't have the kids, you don't have that responsibility no more. And so then he called about a week later and said, I decided to go your way. And he did. He come out to Arizona, and then he got a house was cheaper then, and so he was in luck there. And then he hiked, and then he did fine. Then he got a part-time job in that living museum. And so then this was fine, too, because he was good at this sort of thing, and it followed with line of what he had liked originally. And then the main fellow retired, and he's in full charge down there now.
Great.
Yeah, I hear from him off and on. So, of course, he's my friend for life, for sure. And he said, oh, he's so glad that, he said somehow he was just thinking money. And when I told him, well, after all, when you don't know how long you got to live, which is what I did, how can you be so foolish? Not to do what you want to.
Yeah. When did you first come here to Arizona?
Oh.